Hello there, it's with me, Hamza, and from the touchlines on behalf of the Sports-TV.Network, I'm going to bring you the highlights and the whole update of the week six, which ended today. We had nine amazing games, or some were one-sided, but some of them were very, very close. Let me start off by the games which was played on Friday. St. Thomas's travelled up to Kandy to play Dhamaraja at Nithawela, and as expected, it was a one-sided game, and St. Thomas's ran away 48 points to 5 against a hapless Rajans. With that game, St. Thomas's also remains unbeaten in that group, along with Isipatana as well, after 4 games, and they are on to the final week. I'm going to talk about it soon after the update. And then Sri Sumangala also hosted Thurston at Bogambara. Even though Thurston led 13 points to 7 in that game in the halftime, and also Sumangala also had a slender lead of 14 points to 3 halfway down the second half. But however, during the latter part of second half, Sumangala won the game 33 points to 18 with some amazing tries, and that's their second consecutive win in the Division A Schools League. And it's nice to see Sumangala coming back to the game by winning 2 back-to-back games. But then DSS Science, that's another close encounter. Science scoring just before the halftime when scores led 15 points to 13. There were 2 yellow cards also in the first half for the Dons. But however, in the second half, Science was 21 points down and DS were leading 36 points to 15, I beg your pardon, in the 58th minute. That's like almost 60th minute. And then in the last 10 minutes, as usual, the Science did the same against St. Peter's as well. And they scored 2 back-to-back tries in the last 9 minutes, I would say. And then DS won the game eventually 26 points to 19. That's like 1 goal away with Science. I know the late rally was a little bit too late for the Mount boys. Interestingly, there was another interesting battle in Maradana when Zahira hosted Isipatana. Everyone expected this Isipatana to run away with some points after Zahira going down to Kingswood last weekend at the same venue. It was Zahira who scored off the first points on board off a quick tap. And kind of a high-scoring game, I would say. And then both sides, interestingly, dishing out some fast, open rugby by the back, especially. 19 minutes, when it was 90 minutes, Zahira got a penalty when the scores were 19 points to 8. Isipatana was leading and Zahira opted to keep it to touch. And half time, it was 26 points to 8. And again on the 40th minute on the second half, Zahira gets another penalty. And then I felt that Zahira didn't take those 2 penalties because Isipatana was leading at 33 points to 8. But at the same time, I felt the first penalty which Zahira got on the 19th minute was important, and if they have scored those 2 penalties, the score line one time read 33 points to 22. That's 11 points, and if they have booted those 2 penalties, the scoreline would have been 28 points to 33. So when there was an 11-point gap and a 5-point gap, the whole mentality of those players changed, and Zahira would have played a much more harder game. Even though Isipatana won 38 points to 27, that was a very a good fight back from the lads from Maradan, and it's actually a treat to watch these backs because they have been combining pretty well, running the ball with forwards also combining with the backs in between. So Zahira, even though Zahira lost the game, they had a great game, I would say, and I'm sure the coaches would have been very proud. Then we are moving into the complex where Royal College hosted Vidyartha. 20 minutes, nil all. Vidyartha scoring first, and then Royal coming and scoring 3 tries back to back with 5-meter penalty. And then they took off their famous line-out maul. They piled up 21 points immediately. The scoreline led 12 points to 7. And then thereafter, 29 points to 7. And even though Royal played a good game, I would say hats off to Vidyartha for defending it well, because in the second half, Royal did not score as expected. They would have scored easily more points. The defense line of Vidyartha was holding it so hard. 12-7 halftime, and then Royal winning the game 29 points to 7. I mean, I would say there was more expected by the Redowning boys, because they are going into a big game next week and against Trinity in Pallekele. So, like I said, they have been improving in every game. Their backs were doing the basics right. Simple catch and pass, quick ball off the ruck, beautiful back moves, nothing fancy, basics. Royal sealing that game as well. At Longdon Place, Joe's hosted Trinity College. So I would say Trinity was the clear favorite in that game. However, two tries were scored in similar fashion, 5-meter line out, small pushover. Trinity had a comfortable lead in the first quarter of the game, 17-0. And then their backline scored the fourth try with a typical backline move. Shan Altaf wrapping around and some decoys and on the corner left hand. And then 22 points to nil was the halftime score for Trinity. And then Joe's second half, they were defending Trinity. And on the 47th minute, Joe scored off a pick and go under the post. Even though Trinity led 22-0 in the halftime, I would say a big effort to the Joe's forwards and the backs for holding Trinity just for one try. The final score was 29 points to 17. And in Kandy back again, Anand travelled up to Nittawala to meet St. Anthony's College Katugastata. I would say Anto had a great game. This was probably one of their best games that they played after going down in the previous 3 games. So nice to see that their backs, especially the scrum half, Omita Dissanayake, he was a simple treat to watch, getting the quick ball out, taking the quick taps, running good lines, talking to the backs all the time. And with good speed, good running angles, and Anto had a lead in the first half, 20 points to 13, and then second half, I would say Anto just fell asleep, and then there was no firepower coming from their forwards, no threatening back moves. But then also there was the unfortunate incident for Anto number 4, the second row, getting his second yellow card, and ultimately he has to walk out with the red card. So Anto was playing with 14 men now, majority of the second half. And then Anand had a different game plan in the second half. What they did was they started kicking the ball high, up and unders, testing the back line or the last line of St. Anthony's. High up and unders, charging the ball. Anthony's fumbled, 5 minutes to go. Anand was leading as well. 30 points to 27, 3 points. Anto getting 2 penalties. They didn't want to go for a kick at goal. They started building up faces, and ultimately they went down losing by 3 points. I would say hats off to St. Anthony's, hats off to their backs. Amazing game. I think probably the closest that St. Anthony's came into, and it's nice to see Anand again coming back to a big win that they were expecting in this game. Probably the next game was probably the game of the week for me, especially St. Peter's were hosted by Wesley College at Havelock Park, and definitely Wesley was the clear favourite. How they have performed in the past 3 games, and then how St. Peter's have performed the past 3 games. Everyone was expecting Wesley as a clear favourite, even though St. Peter's is usually famous to create upsets. Most of the games, especially in the second half, they were completely outplayed by the double blue boys in every department. St. Peter's lost the ball, unforced errors, so many knock-ons, losing their line out. And then half-time, Wesley had a 8-0 lead, but everyone expected St. Peter's to gear up again and then change their game pattern. And then sadly, Vishenka Silva, who was their captain and last year's highest tries per point scorer, was playing as a fullback. I'm not sure, even a lot of people are talking about it. I'm not sure whether Vishenka is a fullback whether he's a distributor of the ball or whether he's a finisher of the ball. So for me, in my personal opinion, he's a finisher of the ball, and Abhishek is having too many responsibilities of kicking the ball to touch, taking the kickoffs, joining the line. It's just that last year he had players in the caliber of Pasindu Bandar on the wing who's supporting, and then Abhishek is someone usually doesn't pass. He's someone who likes to run inside out, stepping, especially on the running on the touch lines with his powerful hand out, and just that Wesley really marked him clearly as well, and he didn't have much opportunity to run. And then I always say Wesley really clearly identified the St. Peter's strength and the pattern of play. I mean, St. Peter's usually use their forwards as well, especially they have heavy forwards like Shanuka and Revon, and it just that Wesley clearly held them, especially in the fringes, especially in the rucks, and they couldn't make much ground. And then at the same time, the backs are really disappointing. They lost the ball in every breakdown that they made, passing the ball, losing the ball, forward passes, you name it. It's just that Wesley clearly dominated the game in the entire 70 minutes, and they won the game 23-5. The big win for Wesley, they have secured their spot in the Group A. On Sunday, we saw Kingswood hosting Mahanama. Again, a close tussle as expected. Kingswood leading the game 20 points to 7 and expecting Mahanama to really fight back in Bogambara. The conditions are really good. Both teams dishing out some good fast open rugby. I love the way that Kingswood ran the lines, They were really hectic and top speed in all their moves and good support play, good pop passes. I love the way that they were running the ball, especially how the backs were combining and running straight lines. And Madhuranga Pushpakumara, the number 8 for the Randall Hill Boys, outstanding. 3 tries, 1 try coming off the corner, joining the line with his top speed. I mean, I'd love to see a mobile forward there. And ultimately, Kingswood running away 27 points to 17 against Mahanama. So that's the game that I want to touch base on the points table of the first round in week 4. So in Group 1A, Wesley leading the table with 23 points, and St. Peter's coming in at second with 18 points, and DS is coming in at third at 17 points. So next week game between St. Peter's and DS would definitely decide who goes to the cup. So it's a must-win game for St. Peter's and definitely a must-win game for DS as well. And then in the Group 2A, St. Thomas is leading the group. Isipatana is also having similar points. So St. Thomas Isipatana will definitely go through to the cup segment, and Kingswood coming as number 3 there as well. And then in Group 3A, Royal and Trinity, again leading for the cup segment. Both are unbeaten, 24 points each with 4 bonus points. They are going into the cup as well. So next week, we have some interesting games. And before I touch base on those games, I must tell you, if you look at the points against, I always say that attack would win games, but defense would definitely win the championship. If you look at the whole 6 teams who is topping the groups, Wesley St. Peter's, St. Thomas's Isipatana, Trinity and Royal and Trinity. The least points against was scored against Wesley. So Wesley has only given 33 points against St. Peter's 76. St. Thomas's and Isipatana both has given 87 points each. Royal and Trinity again. Royal has given 39 points each, and Trinity has given 55 points. So if you take the points against, Wesley defense really talks there because their defense lines are really good. I don't want to talk about the points for here. It's just that the points against. So that's where even that little points that they defend would definitely win that game. And more importantly, we always speak about good place kickers this season, and then of course there are a few good place kickers. But I want to mention the kicking ratio or the successful ratio of these kickers. Example, Wesley has scored 20 points 20 tries, and they have only managed to convert 15 of them. That's like 75% success rate. St. Peter's couldn't take the penalty. They haven't scored a single penalty. Even in the Wesley game, they miss two penalties and a sitter conversion. So they have scored 16 tries with 8 of being converted. That's like a 50% success rate. That cannot be expected from a defending champion team, or I would say a top division team, because your place kick has to be really, really good if you want to win key games. DS 14 tries, nine conversions. And even if you take St. Thomas's, 25 tries scored with 18 conversions, a good success rate. Isipatana, now this is important for a team like Isipatana if they want to win the league. 23 points, 23 tries scored, and they have only managed to convert 9 out of it. So that's very much less. It's less than 50%, and they only managed to put one penalty there. So which means they also don't have a good place kicker, just like St. Peter's and just like the other teams who have. And then if you take Royal, 30 tries scored, 18, just a little above 50%. Trinity, 32, 17 converted out of the 32 tries. Shan Altaf's talent comes there. More than 50% definitely. They have scored 200 points altogether, probably the highest in the league so far. Yes, it is. So some interesting facts about these points for and points against. So next week we have a lot of games. I would say all the 9 games are being played on Saturday the 5th of July, starting at Air Force Grounds. Thurston College is hosting Vidyarth. Wesley is playing Anand at Havelock Park. Zahira is hosting their game at Zahira College Grounds. Trinity Royal at Trinity College in Pallakele. St. Thomas's Isipatana, probably one of the games that we would look forward to at St. Thomas's called Mount Lavinia at their home grounds. St. Peter's is hosting DSS in a must-win game at Bambalapitiya. So St. Anthony's is playing Science College also. So there are some interesting battles, must-win games. Definitely, there are teams who have already secured the top 2 spots. So week 5 going to be really interesting, and like to see who would remain unbeaten in the round 1, and then we will have a 1-week break before the second round begins. And again, we are up for some interesting battles. Probably some traditional fixtures might clash also in between for trophy games. So that's it from me. And I'm going to catch up again next week with the weekly roundup. And thank you very much, and have a great week ahead. Thank you.